Hello, my name is Sheridan Scott, and this is my third project presentation for my ICOM 495 project called Irashai. So, the problem that I want to address with this project was about reading manga in Japanese. Um, Manga are Japanese comic books, and they are originally written in Japanese, and then sometimes they get translated into English. And for a lot of Japanese majors, or a lot of people who are trying to learn Japanese, they like to try and read them in Japanese to get some good practice. But they can be kind of difficult to read because Japanese has three different writing systems and it can be a little bit complicated. So sometimes readers will have to jump back and forth between reading their manga and looking up words in dictionaries, which can be kind of tedious. And so I wanted to create a project that kind of solved this problem and made it fun and easy to learn Japanese through manga. So what I came up with was something I call a digital manga, and it's basically an educational manga that you learn Japanese from it. So, I the first part would be in English, and you explain some basic concepts in Japanese, or explain some basic concepts of Japanese, and get users introduced to the topic, and then from there, do more complicated things. And also having all of the information there so that users aren't jumping back and forth between dictionaries and reading their manga. Like all the words and all the grammar points they would need to know are already right there. So just something educational and fun to look at that. So for my research for this project, I looked at a few different kinds of apps. One thing I looked at a lot was children's ebooks because they are generally very educational for kids. Obviously, not as educational as learning Japanese, but it was just to start from there. And what I found from these projects was that there's generally very few words. And instead of the words, it's very interactive. Like there's generally a lot of sound, a lot of clicking and motions to keep the children engaged. And it's also very simple so that kids don't really get distracted or it's not too cluttered for them to understand. So I want to take those factors into my project and make sure that the design was simple and interactive enough for people to actually want to be engaged with it. And I also looked at online Japanese learning tools just because they serve as a pretty good foundation for people who may not have been able to study Japanese formally and they just wanted to look online and figure out how to do that. And what I found about these were that they're a little bit more slow paced, kind of lecture styled. Like I've been taking Japanese since high school, and the format of the websites is pretty similar to the lessons we would have in class. You learn a few words here and then a few kanji here, and then you can take a quiz over what you just learned. And so that also means they're highly organized. So, like as you can see on the picture, they have writing, kanji flashcards, grammar, and all these different uh, tabs to organize all the information. But also because of that, they're not highly interactive. It's, um, you're just kind of learning from the website. You don't really get to interact with it. This website, easyjapanese.org, was pretty good because they have like quizzes and games and things, but some other sites I saw were pretty lackluster. They just had some lessons put on the side, which was something I was trying to avoid in my project. I didn't want it to just be, lessons. I wanted it to be something engaging that users would like. And then I also looked at online manga scans. And basically, what these are is that sometimes people will scan a manga onto their computer and then they'll put it on a website, and people can just read it from there. And I looked at these because they have a lot of options for navigation. So you can jump back and forth between chapters, you can jump back and forth between pages, or you can just um, click your mouse or your arrows to just go linearly through the story, which is really nice. The website layouts are very simple. Basically, there's not much else there to distract you. Basically, just the page of the manga is the focus of the page. So they're very simple and not distracting, and I like that design. Obviously, there's a few advertisements because it's a website, but those aren't problems I really had to worry about for my project. So the first alternative I made was more based off of like the online manga scan websites, in that kind of start with a splash page, and then you can navigate to the different levels of whatever level of Japanese you want to start in. So if you're a complete novice, beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and then from there you can like pick a chapter, and each chapter serves as a different topic. So I only worked on one chapter, which would be called Hiragana 1, where the user would learn 15 new hiragana. And so that from there, it looked similar to a manga app in that you read it like a manga, but instead of just reading it, you learn the content. So in this one, you learn hiragana, and so I would teach a hiragana and then a corresponding word with it. And if you clicked on that, then that word would pop up. And then at the end of the chapters, there would be just a short quiz to test user knowledge. And then for my second alternative, instead of a website, I looked at creating more of an app that you would look at on a tablet. And again, from there, it was all the levels would be in one app, so novice, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. From there you would click on like novice, and then there would be 10, 11 chapters in novice for the different things you would be learning for that project. And similar to the first alternative, there are you read the hiragana and then you click on them, and a corresponding word would pop up to teach you how to say it. So those are my alternatives for my project. And then my actual prototype is this. It's a website still, but yeah. And so you just, hit enter, and then from there you can hit the about page, learn about what the project is. You can go back home. Again, the only topic or chapter I worked on was called Hiragana 1, just because of time constraints. And so you can click on that. And again, it's set up kind of like a manga, in that there's like chapters and the formats, like the different panels. So in the first chapter, you kind of get an explanation of what you'll be learning. And then there's the content, and you can click on different content to focus on that. And then just simple navigation back and forth between the projects. Okay, so for my first user test, I chose 5 users who all had varying levels of knowledge about Japanese. A couple people were Japanese majors or minors and been studying for 3+ years, and then a few people hadn't studied Japanese at all. So for my first test, I took them step by step through the project. I laid out a series of tasks for them that I wanted them to complete. So I would say, oh, go find the katakana sa, or the hiragana sa, and they would go through those steps and figure out what to do. So some results I got back from that test were people thought it was a bit lackluster. There wasn't really any color in the project, and so they wanted it to also be more engaging because it was a little bit wordy. So for that test, I added some color to the project, and then I edited my text to be a little less wordy, so that people didn't feel too overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that they were reading. And then for my next test, I used the 5 same users from the first test and then selected 5 new users. And, excuse me. Again, the users all have varying levels of about knowledge of Japanese. Some people have never studied Japanese before. Some people are Japanese majors. I've been studying it for, 3, 4 years. And for this test, I did it a little bit differently. I let them just kind of free roam around the site. And so I just gave them a few minutes to go through the site, look at what they liked, and if they had any questions, I was there to answer any questions that they had. And so the results I had for this, people really liked the navigation. They said it was very simple to go back and forth to where they needed, and there were no technical difficulties with that. Um, and then some people also said that the content was still a bit difficult to learn. Those are people who haven't studied Japanese. Generally, the people who have known Japanese for a while thought the content made a lot of sense, but yeah, if they hadn't studied Japanese before, it could be a bit difficult for them to understand. So the changes I made after this test, I tried to make it a little less wordy again, just because just trying to make my language more concise and see if that helped people understand what I wanted them to learn. And then I tried to implement a new design into my site with more pictures and just a little more animated. But because of time constraints, I couldn't really get what I wanted done in time. And so I unfortunately had to stick to my old design for my third test. And then for my third test, I had 20 users. All of them took the test online. I sent emails or messages to people via Facebook. And again, I selected a wide variety of users. All of them are college age, between the ages of 18 and 24. A couple of people had already graduated from college. And again, they had various levels of knowledge about Japanese. Some people didn't understand anything about Japanese. Some people majored in Japanese. Some people minored in Japanese. Some people took it in high school. So I got a wide variety of different opinions about how this test would work. And again, the navigation hasn't changed at all since my first test, and people still really liked it. So that's a good point about this test. And then for people who have studied Japanese, they felt like the content was pretty clear. And then one thing I got was some people felt like it wasn't like a manga. They just kind of saw blocks of print in different squares, which manga are comic books, so they were just confused that there wasn't any drawing. But I didn't explain to them at the time that because of time constraints, I couldn't upload the drawings that I wanted to do. So that was one complaint. They said that they wanted to feel more like a manga and have more artwork and things like that. And for people who haven't really studied Japanese before, they thought that the concepts were a little bit difficult to understand. They felt for the test, I only did hiragana 1, so I just explained what hiragana were in that chapter, but people still felt that it was a little bit hard to understand. So those are some things that I'm going to take with me. I'm planning on working on this project a little more over the summer because I want to develop it now that I'll have more time and really make it something good. So that was my project presentation for Irashai for my ICOM 495 class, and I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'd love to hear your feedback, and thank you very much for listening.